guys, welcome back to another episode of Journey with Fee. That's me. I hope you are doing well. Here we'll talk about world and life explorations and inspirations. So without further delay, let's get into the video. Okay, so I hope you have your travel documents ready because today we are heading to the Caribbean, destination Puerto Rico. All right, so Puerto Rico was definitely not high on my places to go, but living in New York, I do have a lot of Puerto Rican friends and colleagues. So, I'm like, hey, it's not that far away. Did my research. It seemed like it had pretty good things to offer. So I'm like, let's pack my bags and let's go. So a few things that to know about Puerto Rico. Because it is a commonwealth of the United States of America, their dollar is the US dollar. So there's no need to convert any of your money when you get there if you're coming from the USA. Their time zone is the same as our eastern seaboard of the US. So we're all on the same time zone as New York, Florida, all that. Their main language is Spanish, but majority of the populated areas speak English as a second language. So I definitely had no difficulty communicating with anyone whilst I was there. I stayed on the northeast coast, which is easily accessible by taxis or by walking. And this is the same for any of the main populated areas such as San Juan, Condado, Isla Verde, and Carolina. So it's pretty easy to stay in those areas and to walk and to take a taxi to get around. Puerto Rico is host to the only rainforest in the United States of America. So that was pretty interesting. And the pina colada was invented in Puerto Rico. So for those of you who like that drink, if you want a real authentic pina colada, go to Puerto Rico. One thing I look forward to when I visit the Caribbean is staying in an all-inclusive hotel. And unfortunately, that was not the case this time around. But that's okay. The hotel came with its own set of perks. For example, upon arrival, you get complimentary mimosas and snacks. And actually, it was at this point that I was like, yes, I actually feel like I'm on vacation. The hotel had its pools, its hot tub, its own private beach, room service or cleaning 3 times a day, which was crazy to me. I've never actually seen that 3 times a day. They have their own on-site restaurants. There were local restaurants literally across the street from the hotel. And there was a enterprise car rental service right on the property, which we did utilize to go to Ponce, which is 90 minutes south. Ponce is known as the Pearl of the South. And it's a good thing I know how to read a GPS map, because you try reading highway signs in Spanish. Yes, it can get a little bit tricky, but we made it there safely. While we were there, we visited the Parque de Bombas, which is an old firehouse turned museum. It has some distinctive red and black striping. You definitely can't miss it if you're driving around that area. It definitely stands out, and it sits actually in the center in a square area in the middle of the city. We also did some souvenir shopping. It was actually much cheaper to do it there than to do it in Old San Juan because Ponce is less of a touristy site. So we got some pretty cool souvenirs there. We were able to drive through what seemed like a pretty affluent neighborhood before getting to the Museo de Castillo, which is now a old mansion museum, which used to be the home of the owner of Puerto Rico's largest sugarcane factory and rum distillery. So it has some pretty powerful history there, and the house is massive, and it has breathtaking views overlooking the entire city of Ponce. On the day that we traveled east, we booked on a tour and we went to the El Yunque National Rainforest. So this is the rainforest I was telling you about before, that this is the only rainforest in the United States. To do the hike is about an hour, depending on how fast you walk. It does have some pretty steep inclines. The path is not really bumpy. You don't have to be an avid hiker to go up it, but you know, it is long. But the end result is pretty great. You get to bask in a waterfall. You can go swim in it. The water was lovely. It was nice and clear and refreshing. It felt so good. But don't get too comfortable at the waterfall relaxing, because you do have to make that 1 hour trek back down out to the rainforest to meet up with the rest of your group. My group was great. I met some pretty cool friends, people who I even still communicate up to this day. So it was a well-spent trip. After us hiking and enjoying the waterfall, the tour guide took us to a local restaurant. I believe it was in Fajardo, and we got local food cooked by a local personnel, and it was there that I think I was introduced to passion fruit mojito, which tastes really, really good. Passion fruit is a fruit that I don't particularly like, but it tasted really good the way they did it with the sugar cane. The food was on point. It did not disappoint. I don't remember what I ate. I just remember that it tasted great. After that, we went to the Bio Island, and this is where we went to the bioluminescent bay. And this was where I had to have my first experience kayaking. Now, let me tell you, if you're going to kayak, make sure you go with someone who can follow instructions. Because me and my travel partner, we definitely had some arguing moments where somebody wasn't steering on the right side that you have to steer to keep the kayak going in a certain position. And it was just a mess. But while we were arguing, we were also laughing, because we realized that there were other persons on the tour who was arguing with their partners, having the same issues. So we didn't feel that bad. So you start off your kayak journey on the Caribbean Sea through a mangrove into the lagoon. We did all of this at night. So by the time you get to the lagoon, it's pretty dark. But the bioluminescent bay, it has microorganisms where if you disturb the water, the organisms will light up, which was actually pretty cool to see. FYI, they tell you do not bring your phones or any electronic devices with you on this excursion. And that's good advice, because they don't want you losing your phone at the bottom of the lagoon and ruining your vacation, because the lagoon is deep. Nobody's going diving for it. There was somebody on our excursion who lost their phone, and trust and believe, he was pretty pissed on the way back. So what does that mean? It means that photographs from this excursion is almost non-existent, because it's one of those things where you just have to experience it. You can't capture the moment for everything. After that day, the following day, we spent recouping. Can I tell you, between the hike and the kayaking, I felt like I did a full body workout the day before. Like, all parts of me ached, was in pain. Whatever we had planned for that day was canceled. This was a rest and recoup type of day. Sit in the hot tub, not move. Yeah, it was rough. But when you look back at it, we enjoyed our time there. One of my biggest highlights was doing a self-guided walking tour through Old San Juan. Yes, you can book an actual tour where someone walks with you, or you do it on a moped, or instead of walking around, because it's actually really long, you can hop on the trolleys, which are free. They pass by also frequently. Something about walking Old San Juan, which is lined by old cobblestone streets, looking at the ancient forts that are still there, looking at the old colonial houses. It kind of took my imagination to a wild place where I can imagine how things once were. So it was actually great. You allow your imagination to run wild when you just walk the streets and just soak in all of the culture and all that there is to offer. So what can I tell you about the food? Well, the food there is fairly inexpensive. You can get a standard filling meal for about $20 to $25. Again, that depends on what you're going to order and how much food you're going to get, but that's about the standard pricing, so you're not really breaking the bank whenever you go to get something to eat. In terms of flavor, you can't go wrong. Everything tastes good. Everything tastes good, from breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, drinks. Everything tastes good. Don't even have to worry about it. While there, I was introduced to Majorca for breakfast one day, and can I tell you, 2 weeks after I came back to New York, Majorca was on my mind the whole time. I need to find me somewhere here in New York that sells it, because even though I'm talking to you, I can see it, smell it, taste it. It was so good. So to travel on a budget, you kind of have to know how much money you're willing to spend or to allocate on a certain vacation. So for this trip, my budget was $2,000 because this was a 14-day vacation. I booked through Expedia, which is my favorite third-party online travel agency, and I got a pretty sweet deal for round-trip flight on Delta Airlines, round-trip airport shuttle to and from the hotel, and 14 days accommodation in a 5-star hotel, all for a little bit over $1,400. Wow. Now you may be wondering, how on earth was she able to do that, staying in a hotel for 14 days? Well, let me tell you how I did it. First of all, I flew coach. Yes, coach. There's nothing wrong with coach, right? Nothing wrong with coach. The other thing I did was I booked early. So I went in May, around Memorial Weekend. Yes, so there was some holiday rates in there, but because May is not peak travel season, the rate was still fairly low. And because I booked early, I booked this trip actually in February, 3 months prior, so you get a better deal then as well. I traveled with a friend and we opted to share a room. So whatever the cost of the room was, that was split between 2 persons. So hey, I know a lot of people feel, a certain type of way in sharing rooms with their friends or their families, but hey, if you can split the cost and then spend the rest of the money on food or excursions, then why not? So the other thing that I did was I stayed outside of the main city, which is Old San Juan. So we stayed in Isla Verde. There's nothing wrong in staying outside the city. We were about 15 to 20 minutes taxi ride to Old San Juan. We were still in pretty close proximity to all the amenities. It was like one really long strip, so there was no problem in that. And the last thing that I did just for such a really good deal is I fly light. I try to avoid baggage fees at all costs. So that means I am becoming an expert. So I'm stuffing a bag of outfits, shoes, and accessories into a carry-on and a large oversized handbag, right? So travel light. The other thing I was able to do overall on budget is to only spend what I've allocated towards excursions. So I've only booked excursions that were within my budget. Sometimes you can't do everything, but for me, if I'm on a budget, I stick to my budget. So I talked a little bit earlier about planning on a budget. So here's my budget breakdown, right? So it was $1,432.12 for the 14-day hotel stay, the airport shuttle round trip, and the round trip flight, right? And I had $500 that I allocated for excursions, souvenirs, food, and resort fee. Yes, the hotel that I stayed at charged a daily resort fee. Again, that fee I was able to split with my travel partner. So total was $1,932.12. So how do I feel about my trip to Puerto Rico? Well, I feel it was money well spent. You get a lot of bang for your buck. There are many other things that I could have gone and done in Puerto Rico. I could have taken the ferry to Flamenco Beach, visited the Bacardi distillery, and there was much more old historical sites to visit. This place is definitely not short of attractions. I have one quick story for you. So on the last night while we were there, we said, hey, let's go have our last meal at the local restaurant across the street. So we literally walked because, as I said, the restaurant was across the street. So we eat, food is good, we get ready to leave, we go outside, and it is pouring cats and dogs. So we wait around a little bit to see if the rain will subside, and it's not. So we said, you know what, the hotel is literally right there. Let's see if we get a cab to take us from here to there. It can't be that much money. So the cab pulls up and we rush into the cab, close the door, and as the driver is pulling out of the parking lot, he says to us, where are you going? And we said, right over there, Quanto. Quanto means how much? So then he says, $10. So me and my friend look at each other as if, okay, maybe something was lost in translation. So I said, right over there, Quanto. And he says, $10. We were so pissed after that incident. We're like, we could have just walked and been soaked and just put the clothes to dry, taken a shower. I'm like, $10 to literally go across the street. It was literally through the stop sign and across the road. So I would say, though taxis are very available, beware for price gouging, and beware of receiving your change. We did experience a couple times where the drivers were willing to hold on to the change, even if the change was far and beyond what a tip would have been. So just beware of that. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button. If you haven't seen the first episode, be sure to check that out too. It was called Worth the Add to Your Bucket List. Alright, until next time, remember, to achieve infinite joy, you have to live life creatively and simply. Until then, see ya.